the exercise selection that you choose has to transition over the course of a prep towards safer exercises. If you start your prep at 20 weeks out and you're doing, heavy barbell RDLs, heavy barbell squats, bent over rows, you're doing standing overhead presses, by the end of prep, let's say 2 weeks out, you might be doing exclusively hyperextensions, exclusively leg press, exclusively machine overhead press, exclusively chest supported rows. And the reason for that is like what we talked about a second ago. Your fatigue is going to be so high by that point, no matter what you do in terms of deloads, in terms of training, in terms of, diet breaks, your fatigue is going to be very high because of the cardio that you're presumptively doing and the leanness level that you're presumptively at. So no matter what you do, you're just going to be more vulnerable in physical sense. So we want to make sure that we do everything that we can from an exercise selection standpoint to mitigate the risk of injury. Because, as we always say, it doesn't fucking matter what you do. If you get hurt a week before you're supposed to step on stage, then all of it is flushed down the drain. It doesn't fucking matter. So once we have all of those bases covered, we can get into actual peak week, okay? So typically what we like to do, what I like to do is I like to take that 2 week out mark and really bring the intensity down. So the volume can stay about the same level, but the intensity will come way down. Typically, nothing is taken close to fail, or nothing is taken to failure. Maybe accessories or 1, 2 RIR, but anything that is compound, anything that is going to be more fatiguing or quote unquote dangerous to the athlete is going to be like 6 RPE, right? Like 6 RPE, 4 RIR, like very, very far away from failure, but we're going to be focusing on getting the most out of those movements with the volume that we have, with the load that we're using. So, and then as we get into actual peak week, so let's just say, 6, 7 days out, then we really scale back on the volume, really scale back. And it's exclusively moved over to exercises that, for the most part, eliminate extreme stretches and eliminate the possibility of muscle damage within that. Because as we're in peak week, we're not only trying to reduce fatigue, we're not only trying to align the training with whatever the nutrition strategy is, whether that is depletion or, carving back up, because that has to align there as well. But we want to make sure that we are reducing inflammation. So that is going to be a very, very important point, is if you are very inflamed, which I'm sure everybody can understand here, you're going to hold water. You're not going to be looking your best if you're inflamed. So muscle damage creates local inflammation. If you, for example, fuck up your quads 5 days out from your show, but let's just think about this as a bodybuilder, right? Male bodybuilder who is being judged on their quad separation, their quad conditioning. If you fuck up your quads 5 days out doing hack squats with a very deep stretch, that's going to be clouding the separation and conditioning in your quads because they're going to be inflamed. You're not going to be able to flex them very hard. So we want to eliminate as much of that muscle damage and the accompanying inflammation as we can. So again, going towards exercises that are mostly going to be training like the middle range of motion, but also this is extremely, extremely important, using exercises that are not novel to that athlete. So I tend to use exercises that have already been in the programming for the last 4, 6, 8 weeks. So that's what we kind of pull from. We don't introduce anything new during peak week. We just reduce the volume, we reduce the intensity, maybe we reduce the rest periods and just keep them moving, but we're not chasing the pump necessarily. And I think that that's another misinterpretation that people have with peak weeks, is they go in there and they do circuits of everything. They do triceps, supersets, and they do sets of 30 with bicep curls, tricep extensions, leg curls. They just do high reps, very minimal rest. But that's actually not what you need to be doing, right? The day before, if you just want to do a full body circuit just to burn up some glycogen, okay, sure. But your training does not need to be like that. It should not be like that. What you're doing is you're just easing yourself into the show. That's really all you're doing. The diet should be carrying 95% of the load through your peak week. Again, if you want to just go in there and get blood flow, sure, great, do that. Go ahead and do it. But it is not going to be that important in terms of your depletion and then carbing back up. And I think that a lot of people put way too much emphasis on what training is going to be capable of doing during peak week. It can do some damage. It can have negative consequences, but the benefits of even perfect training during peak week are probably not going to be what most people think that they're going to be. And that kind of lends itself to more of a theme where training is a longer term consequence of doing good things with good habits, whereas nutrition can be more short term.